everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Soumya. This is a GCP Associate Cloud Engineer Practice Test Module 8. This module contains set of 20 questions with answers. So let's get started with the video. First question, you are the lead architect in your organization project to migrate on-premises deployments to Google Kubernetes Engine. You want to keep costs under control. What is the best way to do that? Option A, configure autopilot in GKE to monitor node utilization and eliminate idle nodes. Option B, create a cluster with the required capacity. Make use of sustained use discounts to stay within budget. Option C, use horizontal pod autoscaler to scale individual nodes up and down. Option D, create a managed instance group using several compute engine instances and set the group to scale up and down depending on load. The correct answer to this question is option A. Next question, you work at a cloud service company. Your management has asked you to investigate resource consumption charges and present a summary of your findings for your GCP environment. How can you do it in an efficient way? Option A, add owner and purpose in resource names. Write a Python script to analyze resource consumption. Option B, attach labels to resources to reflect the owner and purpose. Export cloud billing data into BigQuery and create a data studio dashboard for analysis. Option C, assign tags to resources to reflect the owner and purpose. Export cloud billing data into BigQuery and create a data studio dashboard for analysis. Option D, create a script to analyze resource usage based on the project to which the resources belong. In this script, use the IAM accounts and services accounts that control given resources. The correct answer to this question is option B. Next question. You work in the cloud networking team at your gaming company. One of the teams has reached out to you to help with an error they are facing while creating a new VM. Error message is you have exhausted the IP range in your subnet. How can you resolve the error with a minimum amount of work? Option A, start your VM in a new subnet. Option B, expand the CIDR range in your subnet and restart the VM that issued the error. Option C, move several existing VMs into a new subnet. Option D, restart the VM using exponential backoff until the VM starts successfully. The correct answer to this question is option B. Next question. You have built a geolocation service that is being used by many of your partners. You have created a server and have an IP that can be used to access the service. You want to make sure that the IP does not need to be changed in your DNS if the server crashes or if it is replaced. How to deliver this solution with minimum cost and avoid downtime? Option A, create a script that updates the DNS with a new IP if the server crashes. Option B, reserve a static internal IP address and assign it using Cloud DNS. Option C, reserve a static external IP address and assign it using Cloud DNS. Option D, use your own IP address by using the bring your own IP method. The correct answer to this question is option C. Next question. Your organization has started using cloud storage for storing its customers' data. You need to follow certain regulations according to your organization's policy. All data older than 1 year must be archived. Data older than 5 years must be deleted. All other data must be stored on standard storage. How to implement these guidelines in a simple manner? Option A, create object lifecycle management policies. Option B, write a script that runs daily using cron to copy data that is older than 1 year to an archival bucket and delete 5-year-old data. Option C, write a script that runs daily using cron to set storage class to archive for data that is older than 1 year and delete a 5-year-old data. Option D, create two buckets with different default storage classes, standard archive deleted. Use a script to move the data to the appropriate bucket when its condition matches your company guidelines. The correct answer to this question is option A. Next question. You have chosen to use a single cloud SQL MySQL instance as the primary database for your new accounting application that will store business critical transaction data. You cannot afford to lose any data in case of a catastrophic failure. Which two features help you to make sure only the minimum amount of data is lost in case of a disaster? Option A, sharding. Option B, read replicas. Option C, binary logging. Option D, automated backups. Option E, semi synchronous replication. The correct answer to this question is option C and D. Next question. You are running several applications in different namespaces in a single GKE cluster. You have created a cloud monitoring workspace to monitor the cluster. You are responsible for triaging incidents quickly. What should you do? Option A, add metrics and create alert policies in the predefined cloud monitoring dashboard. Option B, create custom metrics in the cloud monitoring workspace and install alerting software on a compute engine instance. Option C, collect metrics from GKE nodes using shell scripts and publish these metrics to a PubSub topic. Export the data to BigQuery and make it Data Studio dashboard. Option D, for each incident, create a custom dashboard in the cloud monitoring workspace, add metrics and create alert policies. The correct answer to this question is option A. Next question. You are developing a user interface for a streaming API. You need to provide input to this API in a strict chronological order with no repeat data for proper processing. Which products on GCP ensure guaranteed once FIFO delivery of data? Option A, Cloud PubSub alone. Option B, Cloud PubSub to Cloud Data Flow. Option C, Cloud PubSub to Stack Driver. Option D, Cloud PubSub to Cloud SQL. The correct answer to this question is option B. Next question. Recently, one of your competitors had a huge global outage that lasted for several days. Your management has asked you to come up with a plan to deal with such a large scale disaster if it occurs. You want to use native capabilities within GCP along with official recommended strategies. What should you do? Option A, automate service provisioning using deployment manager. Monitor and debug your test using activity logs. Option B, automate service provisioning using deployment manager. Monitor and debug your test using stack driver. Option C, automate service provisioning using gcloud scripts. Monitor and debug your tests using activity logs. Option D, automate service provisioning using gcloud scripts. Monitor and debug your test using stack driver. The correct answer to this question is option B. Next question. Your app is hosted on multiple different compute engine instances and is exposed by a single global load balancer. You need to route requests to appropriate instances based on the URL path. You also need to ensure operations reliability and end-to-end transit encryption. What are the Google recommended practices you should follow? Option A, use URL maps in a cross-region load balancer. Option B, use URL maps with a HTTPS load balancer. Option C, use SSL proxy load balancing with appropriate instance groups and instances. Option D, configure SSL proxy load balancing and a global forwarding rule. The correct answer to this question is option B. You are building an e-commerce website on Compute Engine. The website runs over HTTPS and the infrastructure needs to scale horizontally based on traffic. Unhealthy instances should be restarted automatically. What is the most suitable approach? Option A, create a managed instance group with a health check on port 443. Create a multi-zone managed instance group instead of a single zone. Add metadata label health check to the VM. Add a startup script in the instance template that sends a heartbeat to the metadata server. The correct answer is option A. Next question. All user analytics data for your multiplayer online game startup is routed to BigQuery in a particular project for analysis. You have a small data science team whose members keep changing. You need to make sure only the data science team members have access to perform queries. You want to follow Google recommended practices. What should you do? Option A. Assign the editor role to every data scientist. Make sure to remove the role when the member leaves the team. Assign the project viewer role to every data scientist. Make sure to remove the role when the member leaves the team. Create a dedicated Google group in Cloud Identity. Add each data scientist user account to the group. Assign the BigQuery job user role to the group. Create a dedicated Google group in Cloud Identity. Add each data scientist user account to the group. Assign the BigQuery data viewer user role to the group. The correct answer is option C. Next question. You have developed an inventory management microservice on Compute Engine in a single subnetwork in the US Central 1A region. Your VPC currently has only one subnetwork. Another team is planning to deploy a payment service in the same project in the Europe West 2 region. The payment service needs access to the inventory management service. You want to follow GCP's best practices. What should you do? Option A. Create a subnetwork in the same VPC in Europe West 2. Create the new instance in the new subnetwork and use the first instance private address as the endpoint. Option B. Provision a new VPC and a subnetwork in Europe West 2. Expose the application with an internal load balancer. Create the new instance in the new subnetwork and use the load balancer's address as the endpoint. Option C. Create a subnetwork in the same VPC in Europe West 2. Use Cloud VPN to connect the two subnetworks. Create the new instance in the new subnetwork and use the first instance private address as the endpoint. Option D. Create a VPC and a subnetwork in the Europe West 2. Peer the two VPCs. Create the new instance in the new subnetwork and use the first instance private address as the endpoint. The correct answer is option A. Next question. Your company has developed an email application that is used for internal communications and is hosted on GCP. Your finance team has raised a concern that last month's bill for your GCP project was significantly higher than expected. On investigating further, you find that a GKE container in the development namespace emitted a huge number of locks, which resulted in higher cost. You, as an engineering manager, want to disable the locks quickly to prevent further expenses. How can you do it using the least number of steps? Option A. Go to the locks ingestion window in stack driver logging. Disable the lock source for the GKE container resource. Option B. Go to the logs ingestion window in stack driver logging. Disable the log source for the GKE cluster operations resource. Option C. Go to the GKE console and delete existing clusters. Recreate a new cluster. Clear the option to enable legacy stack driver logging. Option D. Go to the GKE console and delete existing clusters. Recreate a new cluster. Clear the option to enable legacy stack driver monitoring. The correct answer is option A. Next question. You have made significant changes in the UI UX of your website hosted on App Engine standard environment. Before rolling out the new UI to all users, you want to test it with 2% of your users. You don't want too much complexity for this testing. How should you do it? Option A. Rewrite the existing deployment and use the migrate option while deploying. Option B. Create the new version in the same application and use the splits option to give a weight of 98 to the current version and a weight of 2 to the new version. Option C, create a new app engine application, deploy the new version in that application within the same project. Use the app engine library to proxy 2% of the request to the new version. Option D, create a new app engine application, deploy the new version in that application within the same project. Configure your network load balancer to send 2% of the traffic to the new application. The correct answer to this question is option B. Next question. Your company has a stock trading app that has a user base of more than 1 million traders. You are rolling out a major update to your web application deployed as a managed instance group. Your web application is currently receiving live web traffic. You need to gradually deploy the new version without affecting the live traffic. You cannot afford downtime and the available capacity cannot decrease during the deployment. What should you do? Option A, perform a rolling action start update, max surge set to 20, max unavailable set to 1. Option B, perform a rolling action start update, max surge set to 1, max unavailable set to 0. Option C, create a new managed instance group with an updated instance template, add the group to the backend service for the load balancer. Once all instances in the new managed instance group are healthy, delete the old managed instance group. Option D, create a new instance template with a new version of the application, update the existing managed instance group with a new instance template, recreate the instance using the new instance template by deleting the instances in the managed instance group. The correct answer to this question is option B. Next question. You are building an e-commerce website that will be used by users from around the globe. Your team has anonymously come to the conclusion that you need a relational database for the app. You are uncertain about the size of the user base as the marketing survey has delivered mixed results. Your database solution needs to scale with user growth with minimum configuration changes. Which storage is the most suitable? Option A, Cloud SQL. Option B, Cloud Spanner. Option C, Cloud Firestore. Option D, Cloud Data Store. The correct answer to this question is option B. Next question. Your organization has recently started using GCP. You are the head GCP administrator in your company. You have granted the project creator role to the engineering team at the organizational level. You need to make sure only the finance team can link a project to a billing account, but they should not have any other privileges. What should you do? Option A, on the billing account, assign the finance team only the billing account user role. Option B, on the billing account, assign the engineering team only the billing account user role. Option C, assign the finance team on billing account user role in the organization, project billing manager role. Option D, assign the engineering team on billing account user role in the organization, project billing manager role. The correct answer to this question is option C. Next question. You work as the country's engineering head for a multinational app development company. Compliance rules in your country require you to retain audit logs for 3 years. Your team is worried that it will result in significant costs since you have hundreds of GCP projects. You have been asked to implement the most cost effective approach for retaining the logs. What should you do? Option A, export the logs from Cloud Audit to BigQuery using an export sync. Option B, export the logs from Cloud Audit to a cold line storage bucket using an export sync. Option C, build a custom script that uses logging API to copy the logs from Stackdriver logs to BigQuery. Option D, export the logs to Cloud PubSub and write a Cloud Data Flow pipeline to store logs to Cloud SQL. The correct answer to this question is option B. Next question. Your website is experiencing latency issues and it is causing dissatisfaction in customers. While doing a root cause analysis, you have found that the latency is caused by repeated database queries of similar nature. You plan to implement a single caching HTTP reverse proxy on GCP to reduce latency. This specific reverse proxy does not consume much CPU. It needs a 30 GB in-memory cache and an additional 2 GB of memory for the rest of the processes. You are on a limit budget. How should you run this reverse proxy? Option A, use a cloud memory store for Redis instance with 32 GB capacity. Option B, run the caching proxy on Compute Engine with a custom instance type of 6 vCPUs and 32 GB memory. Option C, package the proxy in a container image and run it on GKE using N1 standard 32 instances as nodes. Option D, run the proxy on compute engine with instance type N1 standard 1 and add an SSD persistent disk of 32 GB. The correct answer to this question is option A. That's it for today's video. I hope you found this video helpful. If you are new to my channel, please like and subscribe to my channel and stay up to date with the latest content on this channel. See you in the next video. Thank you all for watching.